Who's actually coming? You see, we obsess with the numbers, and yeah, sure, 973 crossed last Sunday, 370 crossed the day before that, and they're being put up in hotels and private rented accommodation and social housing absolutely everywhere. And people are furious about the sheer numbers coming, furious that now over 1% of the British population that we know of are illegal immigrants.
Around 1.3 million migrants entered UK last year, and the typical migrant is young male of fighting age and with little to no information about them. No criminal records, nothing. This will go down in history as the greatest sabotage done by humans.
What we never talk about is who is actually coming. I want you to watch this film and think to yourself, is this the kind of person we want to come and live in our country? Is this the kind of person you would like to move in next to you? The guy's name is Madapasa. He's been living in Stockholm. He clearly wants to be a big star on TikTok, on social media. He wants to become an influencer, and perhaps he thinks his chances are better coming to the United Kingdom and doing it here. Let's start off with a clip of him in Stockholm. So here he is, surrounded by young women, boastful. We would probably think generally making a bit of a fool of himself. As to how old those females are around him, I wouldn't really like to speculate. Here's a clip of him with a mate. That's right, a gun. Not just a gun tattooed onto his face, but an actual gun. Madapasa will, without doubt, be in our country by the weekend. He won't leave. He'll be able to stay here for the rest of his life. That is almost 99% certain. I know that I get condemned. I'll be told that I'm being beastly, I'm being mean, because he's a poor refugee in need. You can see he's none of those things. Actually, he's here for a life to make money. He's here to lord it over us. Folks, these are the sort of people that are crossing the English Channel.
What kind of refugee is flexing with women and money? Plus, he's traveling illegally when he could just get a plane ticket from Stockholm to London, which would be way easier than sneaking through France to get to England. What's the point of doing that? Oh, right. So there's no record of him, and he can keep doing illegal stuff without a problem. Let's see what Douglas Murray has to say about all these refugees starting riots in the country that welcomed them when they needed a place to sleep. Shows how grateful they really are.
Riots, Keir Starmer, the police, the media have all been clear who they blame for the unrest. The far right, they say, fueled by disinformation online. There's even suggestions of banning platforms like X and cracking down further on free speech. Is that the answer to what we are seeing, which are really clearly deep underlying issues in communities across the country from, places like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Rotherham, Middlesbrough, London, and even as far as Belfast in Northern Ireland?
Well, yes, this all started after a young man, a 17-year-old, stabbed to death 3 girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance party in the town of Southport. And the sense clearly in the immediate aftermath of that, this is an observation, was that the authorities were withholding the identity of the suspect. Now, there are some reasons why they might do that, but obviously tensions locally were extremely high, feelings were extremely high, and the way to try to control the information obviously completely backfired, as you would expect it to. And that's led to these riots across city after city in the UK. It's extremely disturbing. These riots of themselves provoked counter riots where identifiably Muslim young men, some armed, have been also shown on camera attacking people in the streets. And this is really just a completely appalling, and I'm sorry to say this, completely predictable situation. Indeed, I can say it's predictable because I said exactly this sort of thing would start happening 7 years ago or so in my book, The Strange Death of Europe. It's horrible to be proved right in such circumstances because you don't want to be proved right about something like this. You want people to listen and change their policies. But, the last few days have shown the Labour government refusing to concede that there is anything other than what they call far-right violence going on. They claim that there isn't a two-tier policing system in the UK, which everybody with their own eyes can see is not the case. Clearly, there is a two-tier policing system in the UK. These areas where this has happened in, what's more, are all areas where there were riots in 2011. And as I write in The Spectator this week, one of the interesting things about that is that all of these areas are, among other things, areas where migration has continued to increase and joblessness has gone up. Now, just think of those two factors, anyone watching. You keep forcing immigration onto these areas, and you do nothing to improve the lot in these areas. Of course, nobody should be on the streets. The unbelievable hooliganism and thuggery of recent days should repel everybody. But, very often when there is some kind of violence or unrest, we hear political leaders and the wise heads in the commentariat saying we need to address underlying causes. Why has nobody said that in recent days?
Why are the British trying so hard to turn into a third world country? If we keep going like this, all of Europe will end up that way. Sure, the rich will be able to leave, but what about the middle class, or those who actually love their country?
I mean, I've just seen a report from another so-called mainstream channel in the UK, where the quite clearly the journalists are trying not to reveal part of the story. What they're trying not to reveal is what they call Asian men in the area intimidating and harassing journalists. Well, these aren't, once again, you get back to the endless euphemism and lying that is just prevalent across our media. These are not, Hong Kong residents who have decided to go out and threaten people. They are, regrettably, organized Muslim groups. And, they're being whipped up by people, presumably in their community, but also by left-wing and other activists, obviously by the people on the street as well, to come out in force. Now, the idea that the answer to that is to crack down on Twitter, X, is an absolute case study of the failure of the political class in the UK. I remember in 2017, when 3 Muslim men went across London Bridge, slitting people's throats and shouting, "This is for Allah." And the mayor of London and the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, came out and said that we need to address online radicalization. And then Theresa May set up somebody to look into the definition of extremism. What have they actually done in all of these years? Absolutely nothing. And it'll be the same with this. They'll lock some people up, and they will demonize all sorts of people, and they'll cover for others, but they will do nothing to address this. The British public have been begging for years for consecutive governments to bring down immigration and to increase opportunities in the UK. Not only were they not listened to, they were reviled, insulted, and much more. And, it also needs to be said, each of the towns in which these awful riots have been occurring are all places that are resonant with huge crimes that were covered up by almost everybody in authority. I'm thinking of what are called the grooming gangs, but are the rape gangs, which struck in Rotherham, in Rochdale, in town after town, whose names are back in the news now. And obviously, there's no excuse for the rioting. Why does nobody in government, and a Labour government at that, not listen to these people, at least find out what has gone so badly wrong in these areas that reports of who carried out this atrocity in Southport at the dance class for children, that could ignite a country? It doesn't suggest to me that the country is in a healthy state.
The country lost its healthy state a long time ago. But one question I have is, why are they hiding crime? These people don't even have the money to bribe anyone, so what's the point in covering for the criminals? But yeah, I guess we'll never know. So let's see what Douglas thinks about another interesting question on Kamala Harris and the American election.
Kamala Harris and her choice of running mate. She's picked the far-left governor of Minnesota. This is a man who made headlines for signing legislation to put tampons in boys' restrooms in schools. He backed the BLM riots even as they destroyed Minneapolis, and who said he'd provide giant ladders, Douglas, so illegal immigrants could climb any wall Donald Trump built. This choice is astonishing. What do you make of Tim Walz as a future Veep?
Well, it's interesting when this happens is that the whole world's the media attention turns onto Tim Walz, and you've already listed some of the really, I mean, I think just indefensible things that he's done in his career. Of course, he will now pretend to be somebody else, just as Kamala tries to pretend to be somebody else. But remember the intense scrutiny of J.D. Vance once Trump nominated him as his Veep choice. It was very, very interesting because, of course, everybody goes over every single little thing that Vance has ever said, and they find something that offends some people, and then they blow it up. We should expect the same thing to be happening with Tim Walz in the coming days, and we'll see if it does. But it ought to. And, all of this stuff that you've just listed, the bananas stuff about tampons and boys' bathrooms and the BLM riot stuff and else, if he tries to run as a law and order candidate, I would expect him to get a certain amount of pushback. But some of the media being what it is, maybe we won't. Maybe he'll be able to reinvent himself just as Kamala has been able to reinvent herself as a sparklingly innovative, brilliant, successful, dynamic, and inspiring political leader who will lead the free world in the 21st century.
Oh, look, I'm sure the media protection racket will be in full swing, but just the fact that she did not pick the most obvious candidate, which may have secured her Pennsylvania, and it seems to be, Douglas, purely because of fears that picking a Jewish man who has been pro-Israel was going to cause all sorts of divisions within the Democrats, perhaps even see unrest at the Democrat National Convention. I mean, the Democrats appear to have a anti-Semitism problem that runs a lot deeper than just the squad.
Well, it's interesting. Josh Shapiro was the name on everyone's lips. He's a very impressive politician, or quite an impressive politician, I should say. He did have to do the full grovel when it turned out that at the age of 20, he had said that the Palestinians may not want peace all that much. He rode that back and apologized for being correct at the age of 20 and made sure that he was now incorrect. And it still didn't get him the nomination. Yes, I mean, we'll see. I mean, is Tim Walz able to bolster Kamala Harris's credentials on foreign policy questions? We're going to see, aren't we? But if there's any weakness there, I would very much hope that it would be exposed, as it would on either side. This is 90 days left of this, and as you know, and everyone watching knows, these are long weeks at the moment in which anything can happen. And 3 months is a heck of a long time in Kamala world, and we don't need her to explain to us quite how long time can be.